Hello, I'm Scott Wipperman, the pastor here at First Presbyterian Church. And no matter who you are or where you are in your journey of faith, know that you're welcome here. We hope you enjoy today's service on this video, and we invite you to come join us for worship anytime that you would like, or join us in any of the other activities of the church. For more information about First Presbyterian Church, please visit our website at fpchelena.com or call us at 442-4775. God bless. And our reading from the New Testament comes from Matthew, chapter 11. It's on page 1513, or it'll be on the screen as well. So Jesus is speaking. To what can I compare this generation? They're like children sitting in the marketplace, calling out to others. We played the pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn. For John came, and this is John the Baptist, for John came neither eating or drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. At that time Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you were pleased to do. All things have been committed to me by Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. The word of the Lord. Well, Lynn Westmoreland was a longtime representative in Congress from the state of Georgia. And about 6 years ago, he co-authored a bill that would have required that the Ten Commandments be displayed in both the House and in the Senate up in the Capitol. And he was talking with Steve Colbert about this bill, and Steve Colbert looked at him and said, well, just what are the Ten Commandments? And Rep. Westmoreland was able to come up with 3. Now, this is pretty much par for the course. There was a survey done a while ago that said 60% of Americans could name the ingredients in a Big Mac. 2 all-beef patties, less than half of that could name even a majority of the Ten Commandments. And you can imagine that the ones that probably most people got are some of the ones that Rep. Westmoreland came up with. Do not murder, do not lie, and do not steal. Because we're told that we're not supposed to steal, we're not supposed to take stuff. And so, let's let that sit for a second. Now, in our Matthew reading, Jesus is talking about this current generation and saying, what are they like? And is the current generation like majestic mountains, like strong cedars? Is it like a field full of wildflowers? No, Jesus says that this current generation is like children. And then he gives us this little rhyme. And there's some debate about this rhyme. Clearly there's 2 groups of children in this. But the question is there 1 or 2 voices? Is it one group of children talking to another group of children, saying that you didn't come and dance with us and you didn't come and mourn with us? Or is it one group of children saying, you didn't come dance with us, and another group of children that's saying, yeah, but you didn't come mourn with us either? But whatever the case is, if it's one voice or 2 voices, basically you have one set complaining that the others are just sitting on the wall. They're not getting off their tuchus and joining in either the dancing or in the mourning that's taking place. And so there is debate. Is it two groups of children that are saying this about each other? Is it one group of children saying all this, complaining about the other one? Or is it the complainers who are the ones that won't get up off the fence, who won't join in, and are just complaining that their friends won't do something? And they're using that as an excuse as to why they sit still. So Jesus lays this out, and then he goes on and he begins talking about this interesting catch-22 that's taking place. That the leaders, the Pharisees, the scribes, the religious leaders, the rulers are complaining about John the Baptist, saying that he is too ascetic. His diet is a little too strange, grasshoppers. His clothing is a little weird, camel's hair. And that he must be demon-possessed because he is leading such an ascetic lifestyle. But then they immediately turn around and they blame Jesus because he does eat. He does eat with sinners, and he does drink with them. And so you don't seem to be able to win for losing. There was a great Far Side cartoon, one of these times. It was kind of, like one of these game shows, and someone is looking at two doors that they get to choose to go through, and one says, damned if you do, and the other one says, damned if you don't, kind of thing. And this is a little bit what Jesus was facing here. And what he is kind of pointing out is that the ones complaining, the ones criticizing, they are like the children sitting on the wall, not getting up and joining in the dance, not getting up and joining in the mourning. They're the ones who won't get up off their tuchuses and come and live. They won't come and hear what God incarnate has to say. And he goes on to say that wisdom will be vindicated in this case. Wisdom will be shown that the little ones, the children, see and understand. You might remember that a little bit earlier in this chapter, John the Baptist has been thrown into prison by King Herod. And John the Baptist sends some of his disciples to go talk to Jesus and ask, are you the one? Are you the one that we're told of, the one we're promised about? And Jesus doesn't directly answer this question. But he does say, go back to John the Baptist and tell him of the things that you hear, and tell him of the things that you see, that the lame walk, that the blind have their vision, that lepers are cleaned, and it goes on with other things. The simple people can see what is happening. Jesus is making people whole that were afflicted. Go tell that news to John the Baptist. The simple can see. The Pharisees, they were having trouble seeing stuff. They were going through quite some mental gymnastics to trying not to see what was right there to be seen. And this is not something that evaporated years ago. We currently have that problem in our country. There's something that the simple can see, but those who are in power and those who benefit from those in power are going through all sorts of mental gymnastics to try not to see, to try to deny. Jesus is telling us that God bestows his wisdom on the simple. It's not that none of the learned, none of the wise get this wisdom. Some do. But some are choosing earthly wisdom over divine wisdom. And God isn't holding up children, and children here is a metaphor, obviously. It's a metaphor for those who aren't the powerful. It's not that he's glorifying children at the expense of those that are learned. But whenever we don't let our earthly wisdom to be subordinate to the divine wisdom, trouble is going to ensue. There's going to be some significant cognitive dissonance going on as we try to balance these two things. And so Jesus goes on speaking. And he says, come. Come my way. Come join me. My yoke is easy. Come and I'll give you rest. In the Old Testament reading, the Song of Songs, we have two voices there. It's clear we have two voices. The first voice is the female, the woman, declaring that her beloved is coming. And her beloved is not strolling. Her beloved is not sauntering. Her beloved is leaping and bounding to come to her. And he stops just on the other side of a wall, and he's peering through windows and lattices. And then you hear his voice. He's telling her the time is right. The time has now come. See, the winter's over. The rains have stopped. The spring is here. The flowers are blooming. The trees have their early fruit on them. The vines are spreading about their fragrance around us. Come, join me. But there's an obstacle between the two of them. He's on one side of a wall, she's another. And this obstacle could be many things. This obstacle could be a race-related issue. Maybe they were of different races or of different socioeconomic classes. Maybe they had different status. One was elevated and one was low. Maybe they were of different religions and they couldn't come together. There could have been any number of differences that were separating them, the obstacle. But he's urging her, come, set aside that obstacle and come and be with me because the time is right. And Jesus is doing the same thing to us. He doesn't just stroll up to us. Jesus is bounding and leaping to get in front of us and saying, come, the time is right. Join me. Yes, there's an obstacle between you and me, but set that aside. Come and be with me. Set aside the yoke you're wearing, if that's the obstacle. In Jesus' time, that yoke could have well been the law with a capital L. Because the law was so prescriptive and had so many detailed and specific rituals that had to take place. It was a burden upon the people. The Pharisees were interested in the letter of the law, not the meaning of the law, and they weighed the public down with these things as to what is the proper way to wipe your cup. Maybe the obstacle is something different. Maybe it's not the law. Maybe the yoke that you're wearing is a yoke of self-pride. This is what Jesus was talking to the Pharisees about. That this yoke of pride, of self-pride, was weighing them down horribly. They had to be smarter than the others. They had to have the right answers. They had to always be doing the right thing. And this yoke was dragging them down. Or maybe the yoke for merchants was greed. That they would steal or cheat in business from their customers and their clients. St. Francis of Assisi, the saint, grew up and his father was a clothing merchant. And his father wanted St. Francis to go on into the business. But St. Francis saw how his dad did business. Scholars say that most successful merchants at the time cheated their clients. In the Bible, we talk about unequal weights. One set of weights for when you were buying something that were a little bit light, a little bit heavy, no, a little bit light, and one set of weights when you were selling something that were a little bit heavy. This was a common practice. And Jesus says, take that yoke. Take it off. Drop it. Take mine. Maybe the yoke that we're wearing is the burden of sin, of guilt or sorrow that we feel. And Jesus is saying, drop that yoke. Take mine. Maybe the yoke that we're wearing is undefined freedom. If we declare that we are free from all laws and all rules, some of the things that we hear a little bit about in postmodern times, it puts a very heavy burden on us. Because now we have to decide in each and every instance what is the right and proper thing to do. And this weight of all these decisions can wear down. And Jesus says, take that yoke off. Come. Remove that obstacle that's between you and me. Take my yoke. I made a passing reference to a song last Sunday, and it applies here too. Someone asked me about this song. It's Bob Dylan's song. You gotta serve. You're going to serve something. You gotta serve somebody. And it made me remember the lyrics. It goes on. It says, you may be this and you may be that. You may be rich and famous, all kinds of things. But you gotta serve somebody. It may be the devil. It may be the Lord. But you are going to serve somebody. You are going to wear some yoke. And Jesus is saying, take mine. It's easy. And the burden is light. Come, join me. Come, take from me. Come, take from me my learning. Come, take from me my wisdom. I'm not hoarding this. It's out there for you to have. Take it freely. And so, we don't have to worry about taking in this instance, because it's an invitation to take. We're not there breaking that 5th or 6th, 7th commandment of do not steal, because Jesus is telling us to take it. He's laying it before us, inviting us into His world to take His yoke, because His way is easy. He's offering us rest for our souls and for our spirits and for our minds. So let us not be afraid. Let us set aside whatever obstacles between us and Christ and come and take His yoke and take His way and set aside that which is troubling us.